Good afternoon, students. Today, in our Part 1 Honors class, we shall be dealing with the 17th century literature. Last week, we had done 17th century prose. Today, we will be dealing with the Jacobean drama that is an inseparable part of 17th century. In Shakespeare, English drama had reached its apex. The greatness of the Elizabethan age, its heroism, its audacity, its high endeavor, its vigor and zest in life, its passion and its poetry culminate in Shakespeare's comedies and tragedies. But with the accession of James I, a decline gradually set in. There were passionate poets and competent playwrights, but the glory of greatness had departed. The greatest of the Jacobeans was undoubtedly that rare Ben Jonson. He employed all the weight of his learning and authority to establish the classical vogue as against the romantic freedom pursued by Shakespeare. Ben Jonson was called by his opponents the lime and mortar poet, perhaps in reference to his paternal profession of bricklaying. But the epithet was truer than they knew, for Ben Jonson literally built up his plays according to the principles of dramatic architecture laid down by the classical masters. He went against contemporary practice, but he had his reward, for it was his influence and not of Shakespeare that prevailed in the 17th century and the 18th century. He was the creator of the literary taste of the following generations. Jonson's comedies are considered greater than his tragedies. He constructed them according to the classical pattern, but on a principle that was indigenous. On the other hand, in their reflection of contemporary London life, they are often the dramatic counterparts of the picaresque or the rogue fiction of his Elizabethan contemporaries. His practice of embodying in each character a particular humor may be regarded as an adaptation of the moralities. Physiological humors replacing the medieval virtues and vices. Humor is a physiological conception peculiar to that age. It used to be believed that stability in character depended on maintaining a balance in the form four humors. In the human system, excess of any being associated with a particular defect in character, example, choler with anger, black bile with melancholy, phlegm with indolence, and blood with a sanguine temper. This is only a simple statement of a complicated psychophysiological conception which was variously used in contemporary plays, sometimes even by Shakespeare, but by none so consistently as Ben Jonson. This resulted in making his characters too one-sided, and the deeper emotions are seldom touched. This mechanical handling of plot and character was also the result of his ideal of art. Example, the unities too often cramped the emotional enthusiasm. It tried to make up for variety in character and multiplicity of incidents. Ben Jonson's earlier comedies, Every Man in His Humor and Every Man Out of His Humor, are more living than his later comedies. The Alchemist and Volpone. But the latter has a savage power which often reminds us of Swift. Ben Jonson's Roman tragedies, Catiline and Sejanus, are historically much more correct than those of Shakespeare and are much better constructed, but they never came to life. The attempt to make up for lack of characterization by introducing variety and violence of incidents became the feature of most of the other playwrights. London life is reflected in the comedies of Dekker, whose Shoemaker's Holiday is a breezy, boisterous comedy in the Shakespearean tradition, but without any skill in plot or character. The life of the London working people is treated romantically. The Senecan motive is carried on by Chapman in his Bussy the Amboise, but more particularly by Webster and others. For example, Middleton's Changeling is a sensational tragedy of blood. So is Marston's Antonio and Melida. The most powerful of the Jacobean dramatists is Webster. He has certainly greater poetry and passion than the others. His White Devil and the Duchess of Malfi are among the best tragedies of the period. The horrors are often exaggerated, but the dramatic effectiveness remains undoubted. The two dramatists who are great when they collaborate are Beaumont and Fletcher. Fletcher's genius is lively, lyrical, idyllic, and fanciful. Beaumont is thoughtful and tragic. He provided the dramatic quality both to character and to the plot. Fletcher contributed touches of poetry. Philaster and the Maid's Tragedy are their best work. In the lack of moral seriousness, they represent the decadence of the drama and foreshadow the grossness of Restoration comedy. Ford and Shirley are the last of the Jacobeans. Ford excels in depicting intense emotions. Shirley in plot construction and effective dialogue. The moral purpose is obvious, but the tone is that of decadence. Grandeur has completely disappeared, and the closing of the theatres in 1641 brought the drama to a natural death. This was the position of the 17th century drama. It was a brief introduction to the Jacobean drama. Tomorrow, if God wills, we would be covering another aspect of 17th century. Till then, Stay home, stay safe.